Majora Carter is the founder of Sustainable South Bronx. And in that project, the organization that she founded created riverfront parks and green roofs, dramatically increased the number of trees, revived the neighborhood, and successfully implemented a job training program that seeded her community with a skilled green-collar workforce. And if you go to South Bronx and see what she's done, you'll see that it's a start. It's on its way. At some point, I'm sure that the great real estate minds of New York, the ones who named Soho and NoHo and Dumbo and Tribeca, will be referring to Sobro at some point. Majora her list of credentials is amazing. She's first and foremost a MacArthur Fellow, aka the Genius Award. She's won the National Audubon Society Rachel Carson Award. Newsweek named her 25 People to Watch. Essence Magazine 25 Most Influential African Americans, and on and on. I won't go through it all. Behind Majora's work is a simple but powerful truth that to succeed, the clean tech wave needs to lift all boats. And that needs to happen not just in the Bronx, but it needs to happen in Beijing and Berlin and maybe even someday Baghdad. That there's a potential for companies and investors, all of us in this room, to profitably address not just the environmental challenges, but also the social challenges as well. More recently, Majora has extended her reach, partnering with Van Jones, who I know a lot of you know, to co-found Green for All, which was launched at the Clinton Global Initiative in September. And it, too, has a simple but very ambitious mission, which is to build a green economy that's strong enough to lift people out of poverty. And increasingly, the work that Majora and her colleagues are doing is now working to help cities develop clean tech projects and to help clean tech companies to incorporate green-collar jobs in their business strategy. So it's a very exciting kind of thing, and the message is something that's different than most of us hear at clean tech conferences these days. It's about investing in social capital and the potential for that social capital to yield venture-quality social returns. So it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my heroes, Majora Carter.
Gotta tell you where I'm from. In the South Bronx, we've learned not to ever really expect the cavalry to come out and save us. But you guys really are the kind of backup I've been hoping for. Because, I mean, when you hear pundits start talking about, or proudly about how a barrel hasn't quite reached over $100 a barrel, what they aren't adding in, are the subsidies and our tax dollars that support various fossil fuel industries. And they're definitely not adding to that the real costs that the fossil fuel economy adds to this country's bills in terms of public health costs, environmental problems, social issues, etc. The reason I like clean tech is because places like the South Bronx, in this country and around the world, have been subsidizing the costs of the dirty tech with our public health, our property values, our social integrity. My niche in the environmental movement is called environmental justice. It means that no community should have to bear the brunt of a disproportionate amount of environmental burdens while enjoying few environmental benefits. And right now, it's race and class, where you'll find the good stuff like parks and trees, and where you'll find the bad stuff like waste facilities and power plants and dead-end jobs that degrade the environment. It's the dignity part that really does concern us, and it's really crucial to any civil society. Because what do people see, feel, drink, breathe, walk past every day in their statistically shortened lives? What kind of schools do their kids go to? What is there to do for fun? Where do they go to work? Are there jobs to go to? When I imagine what would have happened if we had located all of our power plants, our waste facilities, our chemical refineries, and our transportation systems in every neighborhood, if they located them in rich communities as quickly as they do in poor ones, then our economy would have been clean and green a long time ago. But instead, poor communities of all colors are getting more toxic and not less. In certain zip codes, unemployment rates are rising faster than sea levels. And the supposed economic boom that is now sort of sputtering to an end has not narrowed the gap between rich and poor, it's widened. So you all know where these places are in your own cities, and there are places where you'll find large numbers of lots of out-of-work people. Now, these folks could be heroes, of this transitional clean tech economy, if they received specialized clean tech job training and placement. Or we can just continue with the dirty tech solutions that got us into these issues in the first place. Americans are really good at turning a profit, and somewhere along the way, prisons became profitable. As a matter of fact, prison and waste facilities are actually two of our country's biggest growth industries. And this is the South Bronx where I'm from. So how did something like this actually happen in an area that's actually less than 1.5 miles big? Well, this is I like to tell the story through the story of my family. This is my parents. My dad, was part of the Great American Migration, when blacks from down south moved up north in search of a much better life for themselves and their families. When they moved to the Hunts Point section of the South Bronx, it was a mostly white working class community, and walk to work as well. And lots of blacks from the South continued on that great migration, and then Puerto Ricans from the Caribbean started coming into, and white flight happened, which was basically a construct of the real estate industry as well. Telling whites that their property value was going to really go down because blacks were moving in, and then real estate brokers would actually buy the houses for cheap and then sell it to blacks for a lot more money. Completely artificially, dealing with that. But this is what happened. Another thing happened during that time period. Every city, had a Robert Moses of its own. The car became king. And suddenly, whole communities were just ripped apart in favor of building more highways. And actually in the South Bronx, we lost about 500,000 people, because in particular they wanted to build expressways to connect the wealthy area of Westchester, just to our north, to Manhattan, to our south, and they wanted an easy way for folks to get there. So if you happened to be in the middle, that was your problem. Sometimes people were given less than a month to leave their places. And I show this picture of the Cross Bronx Expressway because it looks like a gash right through the center of a community, and that's because that's exactly what it was. An additional thing happened. Banks realized that in that kind of climate, are you really going to want to make investments there? So they literally put red lines around areas where they knew they were not going to make any kind of investments. What happens when you can't make investments in your property, no matter what it is? The value goes even lower. And you also had, in our case, you had landlords actually having their own buildings torched so that they could collect insurance money. Sometimes they would hand over the papers to the people that lived in the buildings to absolve them of any responsibility. But this was my childhood. It was actually my neighborhood and growing up. And very often, it was our playground, but it often did resemble a war zone, and as a matter of fact, it was in a lot of cases. My brother served 2 tours in Vietnam and came back only to be gunned down several blocks from my home.